It is Tuesday afternoon. I have some really good news to share with you guys. This first article is very good. Okay, and there's red highlights in this article that you're going to want to pay attention to. Okay, so let's get started here. All right, so the first article is called "The Response of the Central Bank is Procedural Related to Its Law and Not Economic Logic." Abdul Hussein Al Anbuj. Let's see. Let's see what the article tells us. Okay, so looks like this guy's a professor. And here's what he says. He says, in fact, I was not going to respond to the central bank, but to clarify the picture in front of the non specialist reader. As for the specialist, he knows what I meant in my article on inflationary financing. It is true that I have not worked in the central bank, but I have been a professor of macroeconomics and monetary theory for years. Unless the central bank works according to unscientific contexts that are not consistent with what we have studied, moreover, over the past 15 years, I have evaluated and put an opinion on all central bank reports that come to the Prime Minister by virtue of my consultative work, just as my article does not care about procedural and administrative matters or how to organize the public assets and liabilities and accounting restrictions for the central bank, but rather I talk about monetary policies and focus on the impact of monetary issuance and the overall economy in a recession situation, which is the goal of paper, perhaps, or E explained by that the following things. First, it is my responsibility if Brother Hussein, an expert at the central bank, does not differentiate between, and guys, there's a red highlight I missed. It says issuing a new currency and issuing a new cash. So right here, they're talking about issuing a new currency and a new cash. So we are close to economists, and we have the picture as I mentioned in my article. That was first. Second, it is certain that new and old currency issuance, but that any dinar that is outside the central bank is on the side of the liabilities and on the right of the bearer over who issued it. And I do not know why he supplies this axiom, but he issues the money against deposits with the central bank. That is the natural mechanism for controlling the offer cash is not what is intended in our article, but what is meant in the article is monetary issuance exceeding the requirements for regular money supply, and therefore it is tied to the requirements of monetary policy to influence the overall economy due to a recession crisis. So the central bank makes the cash flow greater than the commodity flow, which is greater than the volume of transactions, in thereby contributing to the inflationary financing of monetary policy with its policy in ridding the financial economy from recession, creating an inflationary pressures by increasing money supply. Third, if the new currency issuance will create inflationary pressures to get the economy out of recession, then how does it say that this measure is not a tool of monetary policy and are not policy tools used for the purpose of restoring economic stability due to its imbalance in crisis or crises? Fourth, the central bank lends the government any purchases of its bonds that it pays the dinar to the government for the value of the loan, and this means that the dead dinar in the central bank will be revived, which means that the money supply increased, and this means that the cover inevitability expanded and the cover did not shrink, but the effect of the two measures on the economy is the same. Fifth, it is unfortunate that the economist said that the central bank deducted government bonds in favor of government banks, which in turn discounted them for the benefit of contractors in the previous crisis, 2014, according to his law, and I do not care about his law. I'm talking about the result and impact, and I do not know what the difference is in what I mentioned because the result is an offer cash is the same. Money is with the public, and the banks are part of the money supply in its broad sense. As long as bonds are discounted to banks or deducted directly to contractors, the same will lead to the effect of inflationary financing inevitability. Sixth, the rescue packages that countries made. I also mentioned that as the general budgets of these countries, but how the deficit was financed inevitably through the compatibility of an expansionary fiscal policy with an expansionary monetary policy where the central banks sought to issue a cash. So America is now printing 3 trillion, and I do not understand why it is presented at the same point in other vocabulary. Seventh, I would like to refer to my recent book on exaggerated exchange rate. In it, suppression of the local product and support for the importer, which is entirely dependent on the central bank data, as these data show that the difference between the value of private sector imports that the central bank claims is that the currency sell window was found for it, and what he sold him $1 is that window for the period from 2010 to 2017, that is, in 8 years up to $202 billion, which is money in foreign exchange that bled without a commodity import. Eighth, I would also like to point out that raising the value of the dinar in an imaginary way has created a big difference between its real value and its subsidized value. This difference is net addition that supports imported goods in a way that exceeds all margins of customs protection to protect the local product in Iraq, which made the central bank with this monetary policy destroying the base productivity in favor of imports behind millions of unemployed. And Mr. Hussein continues to object to the central bank's call to adopt a strict monetary policy. All right, next article. Pompeo, America is ready to work with any prime minister who serves the interests of the Iraqi people. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo confirmed Tuesday that in his country is ready to work with any prime minister that serves the interests of the Iraqi people. The United States is seeking to continue our good relationship with Iraq, and we proposed a strategic dialogue last June. He told a news conference and that all strategic issues will be discussed in dialogue with the Iraqi government, including the future of the American military presence. He continued, the coronavirus should not limit our ability to fight against the Islamic State in Iraq. Next article. By name, al-Zarfi keeps 4 ministers from the Abdul Mahdi government. Political sources said on Tuesday that the prime minister designate, Zarfi, has renominated 4 ministers in the government of the resigned Prime Minister Abdul Mahdi to the portfolios. The sources said in an interview that al-Zarfi decided to keep the Interior Minister, decided to keep 3 Kurdish ministers, who are the Ministers of Finance, Construction and Housing, 2 bankers, and the Minister of Justice. The Prime Minister designate, Zarfi, requested that the presidency of the House of Representatives to fix a session to grant confidence to his cabinet. Next article, the Minister of Finance discusses the collapsed Iraqi financial situation with the bank and the International Monetary Fund. The Minister of Finance, Fahd Hussein, met Monday with the Ambassador of the United States of America and Britain and officials from the bank and the International Monetary Fund via closed circuit. Hussein said in a tweet, I participate in a meeting via closed circuit television to discuss the economic and financial situation and the implications of failing oil prices on the Iraq economy to study some proposals to overcome the crisis. He added, we also discussed the meeting in which ambassadors of the United States, Britain, and the World Bank representative participated, and the International Monetary Fund, in addition to the Undersecretary of Health, is a crisis. Corona epidemic and the steps taken to support the health sector in Iraq to contain this dangerous epidemic. The United States of America has announced on Sunday, April 5th, its willingness to assist Iraq in confronting the new coronavirus during a meeting with the American ambassador with the presidency of the Council of the Iraqi Supreme Judiciary. That's it. God bless you guys. On to the next video.